Hello everyone, Hachadino over here, and today we are going to do a full deep dive guide on 11.0.5 Subletly Rock. We did a fast, let's say, explanation before, so now this one is, even if you haven't played Subletly Rock, you kind of will know what to look for, what to do, and everything. Let's begin first of all with the spec itself and the talents that we will have. Then we'll go into gear, then gameplay and decisions, etc. etc. This is kind of like the baseline, let's call it. This works both for single target and for AoE. Points that you can change in the class tree. You kind of only change elusiveness and cheat death. And maybe if you really don't want to be slowed, you can get unbreakable stride, but usually we don't care about those. Now, we don't really play Deathstalker anymore in any content. Why? Because of bugs. It's almost the same DPS as Trickster, even if it seems a little bit more, because the Mark bug is not in the simulation craft. We do expect it to be fixed, but we don't know. So why do we play Trickster? After the changes to Coup de Grace, it gets extra cooldown reduction, making us be able to play around Secret Technique now. There's also some changes from the last patch because of Death Perception instead of Shadow Dust, but those I will explain a little bit later. Now I'm going to explain variations on the build. This is, again, as I said, the template with first dance. Even if you only get one proc in a fight, a raid fight, it's still kind of decent. But usually, if you don't want to play the first dance, you can just play Replicating Shadows. It will be a little bit more damage if the fight takes more than 6 minutes. This is if there is any more than one target. Shadow Focus, it's also a talent that gives a little bit more DPS in single target. I don't like it because I lose Exerize in execution. That is really good for survivability. But if there is only one target, you can of course change these ones and then put those points over here. This would be like something that would seem kind of the best. But as you know, in Sublety, all of these points are really close anyway. It doesn't matter that much, even if you do those or the others. Now, as for the gear for Subtlety is a little bit different from Assassination and Outlaw, but not hugely different. The only thing that really changed a lot from Outlaw and Assassination and Subtlety is that we really do not like Haste or Critical Strike as much. They are not super bad, but they still will seem a little bit less, especially if they are on the slots that only have secondaries like rings and, in the case, the necklace. So what are you looking for? You are looking for mastery and versatility. You of course are also looking for, in this case, as much of those as possible, so to get the crafted items. And as for embellishments, we have three kind of ways that we can go. As for myself, I did play Assassination a little bit, so I have one that works with both called Ascendance. This will give me some stats that stacks to 10 times across the fight. In this case, in these 15 seconds where it gets stacked to 10, it will give me a lot of stats. And also I have a crafted item that doubles that. So I will get that stat that will keep changing. It's a little bit less DPS than the focusing lens or the dust threat for Sublety, but it also works for assassination. Not as well for Outlaw, but I don't really play that spec that much, so I did not care. Now, one really important thing is this spec without the treacherous transmitter is going to do a lot less damage. It's likely that even if you have a hero track, Scar Disgrace, that is the second best on use stat trinket that you can get, or Ratstone, if you did manage to get one of those, it's still going to be behind a looking for rate transmitter. So that trinket is super important. Now, as for the second trinket, there are a lot of them that you can play. You can play the Obinax Mercurial Egg. You can play the Void Reaper's Contract, you can play the Queen's Mandate, or you can play the Shadow Binding Ritual Knife. Of course, as you may expect, if this trinket is from Delph, you kind of want the hero track one instead of the champion one. Now, as you seen them before, when we played Deathstalker, the Mad Queen's Mandate and the contract were a little bit better because of one hero talent, but now, kind of, let's say, the best in general is the Mythic Ovinax Mercurial Egg. Of course, it doesn't make it a lot different from the Void Reaper's Contract or the Mad Queen's Mandate. There are also some fights or encounters that have extra damage taken or that have some adds that you can snipe and get extra uses of this trinket, so it's still very useful to have around. Now, as you might see, we have different crafted gear like the engineering, other things. Of course, you do want highest eye level possible on all of those things. And the off piece that we are going to use is the helmet. That means that you want this helmet, the circle of the enveloping Leviathan, high eye level helmet also works, or a crafted one where you will eventually use the engineering one or the leather working one with versatility, mastery, either of those. Now that we are away from the gearing situation, now let's talk about our skills and gameplay. I have been working a lot on those kind of things, and as you might expect, in the Rogue Discord we also have a lot of discussion, but I have my own sheet that I use, of course, for this kind of guides, and here I do talk about the opener and also some guidelines that you can use. I'm also going to show you a Mythic Ky veza, let's say, showcase, so you can know more or less, even in a real fight, how to play the spec. And here, as you might know, our opener is like I had shown on the other video. You will Shadow Strike and you proc Premeditation, but you also do remember that before pull, you can stack 2 Superchargers. What does that mean? That even as you die or you revive, or even if it's like 1 minute before the pull, you can click Symbols of Death and you get these 2 Superchargers. You will need a weak aura. I'm going to leave it on the description to kind of show them. There are a lot of packs that already have them, but I will put the one that I use. This means that your 2 first finishers will have 3 extra combo points thanks to Supercharger and Forced Induction. This will make it so when we begin our pull, as I had shown here, we will Shadow Strike and then we go to full, then Flagellation, Eviscerate, and then we get to 11 stacks. We banish Shadow Strike, we banish to proc Premeditation again, because we still don't want to use Shadow Blades. Remember, now Shadow Blades only last 16 seconds, so we're going to use it way after, usually. And after that banish Shadow Strike, we are going to apply Rupture. Rupture, of course, does make that dot that hits quite hard as sub, and the Eviscerate from before, now with the new cut to the chase that we have. It was before only for assassination, but now Sublety also has it, and now you don't even need to have a slice and dice running for it to work. If you eviscerate, you will get those seconds of slice and dice. It does not work with Coup de Grace, but it doesn't matter that much on raid combat anyway. Now, as you get that, you will enter Shadow Dance, and you are going to Shadow Dance, Symbols of Death, and Shadow Strike. Remember, we don't use blades here, because if you use blades, you would lose combo points from provoking Premeditation. And our first finisher with the Cold Blood macro, as you might already know, will be Secret Technique. Secret Technique now is the first finisher that we always use. If you want to check here on the general things, we always use Secret Technique first, and if you have Coup available, you will still use Secret Technique first, and then Coup will give cooldown reduction to Secret Technique. Now, after the Secret Technique is when you will use Shadow Blades. Now, as you might expect also, you are going to use the transmitter trinket. This trinket, if you haven't played it ever before, has 3 different things that it can do. I did a video on it, and you can check it on the sheet. That sheet is also in the description, of course. The different usages and effects, it's from the beta, but it hasn't changed anything. There's also a Wikabra for it that I'm going to leave also on the description, and you basically will hear
Collect or stand in circle.
if there is the orb or this thing that you soak, you will just go there and you get the buff for 15 seconds. It would always spawn in a 45-degree angle, so you might see me if you have watched my streams or my kill videos, that when I begin, like I should strike the boss, sometimes I move the camera a little bit here, so it spawns over here instead of inside the boss, where you can lose them quite easily. Now let's watch some gameplay so you know already. As for the timers it's themselves, you can see here a visual representation of them. Ignore the Obinax thingy, that is for, of course, Obinax. And you have a timeline on where you will use your cooldowns. And after showing the opener on the boss, I'm going to explain the whole thing. Then we will look at the 2 or 3 minutes more of the cooldowns, and then I will explain AoE and other things. This scores everything about single target. So let's go into this. This is a Mythic Ky veza pull, well, kill, let's say. And as you can see here, before I full screen it, you will have here the Supercharger. And this Supercharger I have done before the pull. If you have a good aerial and he does at least 20 seconds, you can also use the symbols of death there, and you can get the rotten buff. It will make your 2 shadow strikes also be critical strikes. Kind of good. Now here, of course, we will wait a little bit. If you haven't done Ky veza, don't worry. I will have a bit explaining it. Just it will come a little bit later, because it's a little bit harder to explain. Now, and just here, first we do a shadow strike. If you want to check the abilities that I use, they are over here. And after the shadow strike, I'm going to put my transmitter and flagellation. You can macro them, but I do not recommend it because on dungeons and other places it can be a little bit annoying. And the one that I got was jump 3 times. So what I'm going to do is jump once, jump twice, while we are putting the rupture. I did the eviscerate, and after doing the eviscerate, you can see over here what I have done. We are going to put the rupture, and now I'm not going to do the third jump yet. I'm going to go into Shadow Dance and Shadow Strike, and then here is when I will jump. I will jump when I will use my secret technique, so that the buff lasts for our 2 secret techniques that we will use. I am playing the first dance, but it's almost the same. If you don't play the talent, you will just use your 2 dances in a row and get those 2 secret techniques. Of course, as you know, Ky veza has this mechanic where she will kind of drag you a little bit after you finish those. But now we are just doing eviscerate things, and we used our secret technique, and that is the opener itself. Now, after doing the opener, we have some, let's say, downtime until we get our next secret technique, and then when the secret technique is ready, you can choose to use it now or later. For example, in Ky veza, you can use it, let's say, instantly if you don't play the first dance, but I don't recommend it because you have some dashes. So what I do is I wait. Remember, now waiting is no issue, and then if you don't get fixed, you will just make it, I refresh rupture, and then go into my shadow dance. This will be our third shadow dance of the fight, and then, as you might expect, we get a lot of cooldown reduction. We dodge the lines, and we are ready for our next shadow dance. This one will have cold blood, as you can see, like I did in the sheet. If you have the sheet in your other screen or anything like that, around the 55 seconds or almost 1 minute, you will get your fourth shadow dance until one we have cold blood. You can build to full, or you can use shadow strike, and the damage difference is almost none. I, in my case, waited to do that because I had some stacks to do a coup de grace. Now, after this one, at around 1 minute 10 or something like that, you will get your secret technique back, but you don't want to use Shadow Dance, because if you use Shadow Dance now, you will not have two stacks for when you are going to use your cooldowns at 1 minute 30. So this is when we are just going to refresh Rupture, and we are going to use Symbols of Death to get our secret technique out, and then to use our coup de grace and everything else to get cooldown reduction to have secret technique again. If nothing goes wrong, you will have, in this case, secret technique again, as you can see here, and you will be ready to use transmitter, flagellation, and everything again. It will be same thing as the opener. You want to use your transmitter and look where the soak thinking is, or where the orb goes, or if you have jumped 3 times, just jump twice and don't activate it until the third thing. Of course, depending on the boss, some mechanics will make this harder. Like for example, on veza, if you get the orb or the soak thingy, you may want to proc it before, because of the endless starless night eclipses that can make it annoying. And now here, as you can see, I just enter dance and I use my secret technique, and you just dodge, you're just defensive and keep hitting the boss. Use the second charge. Now, one thing that some people, let's say it's a little misplay, but it's not crazy. You do want to use your second Symbols of Death to empower your secret technique, and if possible, coup de grace. It's not a super damage loss if you used it a little bit earlier and you upgrade to eviscerate, but ideally you do that, because it's also when the buff is active and it's very good. Now here we finish our two dances, and now this is, let's say, a period of where we are at our weakest. Why? We can't really dance again with Symbols of Death, because we don't have any Symbols of Death and we don't have anything. So here you know that you will have full uptime on the boss. You will use a secret technique without anything, without Symbols of Death or without Shadow Dance. If your cooldown reduction is kind of whatever, if you see now that, for example, as you finished everything here, your secret technique still has like 15 seconds or almost 20, don't use it, because you want to use it with Cold Blood later. Now here, as you might expect, we are getting the rough times. Here we are using eviscerates and getting rupture up and everything. And here I did a little misplay. This can happen. Do remember to check on mechanics of the bosses to have full uptime on them. And now after this, you won't dance again until you have your cooldowns. It is possible that you cap shadow dances. Don't worry, it's okay. Just keep playing and your cooldowns. Now after this, it's going to be the same. So I'm going to just cut it here. This is the full single target rotation that you will follow. Now it's going to be the same thing. You are going to use your cooldowns. Then if you check if the cooldown reduction is kind of right, you're going to use a secret technique alone without anything. Then get Rupture and the Cold Blood Shell Dance, and then go into cooldowns again and again. Now, of course, um, that is the gist of everything that you want to do on single target. Now, let's go for more of an AoE and Cliff situations. For AoE and Cliff, the only real talent that we change for Mythic Plus is we go, instead of Weapon Master, we go Replicating Shadows. You can also go Shuriken Tornado, but I'm going to explain this just at the end for people that are kind of curious how to use it. But I don't expect people, because I'm going to be honest with you, it's really, really annoying to play it. Now, as for the build that we play in Mythic Plus, it's this, but there is one caveat that we do at the beginning. Now, because you can get superchargers before the key begins, we are not going to use Rupture. We are going to go straight into cooldowns on the first pull. On the other ones, you are still wanting to put Ruptures. Now, I'm going to show you a Necrotic Wake pull. Let me put it here. This is Necrotic Wake, of course. This is only a 10, so it's not crazy. The pool is also not as big as some people would do. We are not pulling into the Necromancer or into the pack with the Fresh Crafter. I'm just going to sap this boy fast so the tank can get the shield. And then, as you can see, I have Supercharger up. And then I also used Shadow Blades before the key began, but because we do some things, you are going to lose it. On some keys, you are still going to have it running at the beginning. Now, what we are going to do here, because we have those two supercharges, it's we are going to directly Shadow Strike, and then Flagellation and Transmitter, get our ball instantly, and then go into dance and use our secret technique. I do recommend that you play First Dance in Mythic Plus, and as you can see, the damage that we can do instantly is very, very high. Assassination and Outlaw had a little bit of ramp time, but Subletly just goes in. Here we did almost 6 million DPS, and the pool was not huge. And now, as you can see here now on the next pool, we do want to put Ruptures. So we are going to put a Rupture there, get some cooldown reduction for our Shell Dance, and then go into it without any issues. We are of course going to try and focus the highest HP mob. Because of Nimble Flurry, we are going to flurry from it to the other mobs. It's the same thing as we did on the raid fight. We are going to use then our fourth Shadow Dance with the Cold Blood, and we are going to kill this boy. Now, on other pools, you do want to put Ruptures, so you will put Rupture, Rupture, Rupture until you get your cooldown reduction for your dance, and then you can use dance here. Nothing crazy, and that is what you will kind of do across all of the AoE situations. I am going to make some masterclass videos on dungeons, but that is the important things that you need to know about that. Now, as for anything that you may not expect or something like that, there are some mechanics on some bosses that you may want to look for. So I do recommend that you have big wigs or anything like that with things, for example, like the secret charge, the veza dashes or something like that can make it so it's annoying to use your cooldowns. Sublety is really reliant on having uptime during our cooldowns. So do try and research the bosses and the encounters first to be able to use sub at its maximum. Now, after everything about that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some cool things that we can kind of know or do. As you might expect, here Sublety it's kind of like a burst spec. So even with that, you may think that Shuriken Tornado would be what we would use, but it's very annoying because of the way it works with Shadowcraft. Shadowcraft make it so if you have 7 combo points, you're going to get a refill. If you haven't played Sublety ever, you may have seen on my Ky clip that I got some refreshes and I used a finisher after a finisher. Now I'm going to leave you here with the general things, and I'm going to go about them again. So you saw me play and everything seemed fine and everything was like that, but I'm going to be kind of rigid on this. You kind of want to follow this because otherwise you're going to get unsynced things and it's going to be very annoying. Now, one thing that you really don't want to do is, if flagellation is 20 seconds away, you are not going to use secret technique unless it's an AoE situation. What does it mean, an AoE situation? I think when you have 2 or 3 mobs more apart from the boss, you are safe to use it because even with low energy, you are going to be able to get secret technique back. If you only have 2 or 3 mobs, it will be kind of dicey. Now, if you want a visual reminder or something, if you want to have 2 dances in a row with your cooldowns, you will want to have 1 stack and around 30 seconds on the second stack. That way you will not be disturbed when you are doing the second dance, and you will not waste time in your transmitter. Symbols are going to be used always with secret technique, but secret technique will not be always used for symbols. As you saw, sometimes you can send a dry one, and now we are going to talk why do we send those dry secret techniques. It's because of coup de grace and cooldown reduction that is increased. As you may know, this works as 5 combo points where it gets consumed, and those 5 combo points that follow the extra thing will make it so your secret technique goes off cooldown faster, and your shadow dance also goes off cooldown faster because of deepening shadows. This also means that you want as much uptime as possible, but it also not super bad if you have to sometimes skip that dry secret technique. The other ones you can just kind of move things around, and you have to see your cooldowns and play accordingly. Now that is almost everything that I wanted to say. I'm going to just say some filler things or anything like that. If you ever think that you need any content, you can also DM me on Discord, and can also join the Rogue Discord. I have it also on the description. You can also, of course, pick other talents, not from the general one, but at least from here. Planet execution and improved shadow techniques are kind of close. The only ones that you kind of won't move are these ones. You will always place with these ones at least. And also, if you need super defensive things, you can go for Cloaked in Shadows and Soothing Darkness, so Vanish becomes a really strong defensive cooldown. Now, for some extra utility that Subletly has, you can get a Shield Shroud, and your Shrouding in Darkness makes you go a little bit faster, and also a little bit of a secret and a reward for people that have stayed with all of the video. Remember, Supercharger only stacks to 2 outside of Great Combat and at the beginning of the key, but there are some dungeons that have RP, and you can also stack Supercharger there. For example, City of Threats, Downbreaker, Green Battle, you can get 2 or 4 Superchargers depending on the length of the RP, and begin a boss with super extra damage. I've been able to get 2 to 2.5 million DPS on some bosses because of all of the chargers and everything that I had available, and not every class can do that. Now, as for the last thing that you can do, you can always subscribe and like the videos, and of course, expect me to still keep updating everything. And if you really want extra content, you can check the other videos. I will try to update them as much as possible, and also do cool guides for bosses with things like this, for example, for Oinax. I will see you on the next video.